Hi, and welcome to a new series that I'm doing called Disruption, the Alchemy to Purpose. I've had this idea for quite some time, over a year. A lot it has to do with how much disruption I've had in my own life and how much I've reflected on the purpose of all of that and how it's actually led me to my purpose. So I talk about that a lot when I teach and facilitate workshops about purpose. But what I want to do in this series is interview different people and talk about disruption and what they have learned and how it truly can be the alchemy to purpose. I am super honored to have our first guest today, and I'm going to introduce him by way of sharing my screen here. Let me see if I can do this well. Microsoft is wanting me to talk to them, and I don't want to talk to Microsoft. Thank you. And that's not the right slide for right now. So, David McNally. David McNally is a speaker and a best-selling author. These are 4 of his books. His first one was Even Eagles Need a Push. The second one, The Eagle's Secret. Then he wrote Be Your Own Brand, which is a lot of what our work at TransForm is based on. And then Mark of an Eagle is his most recent book. He also wrote a gift book of short stories of encouragement called The Push. And so I'm so excited to have him join me this morning. Oh, and for those of you who don't know, he's my dad. So that's pretty cool too. So let me have him enter the room here. Just a second. Okay, still navigating this. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, and here he is. Hi, Dad. Dad?
Yes, how are we?
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I actually am doing good.
Good. Are you quarantined?
I am absolutely quarantined. Yep.
Are you social distancing from your wife?
I am social distancing, so she is gone and she's left for the day.
That doesn't sound like some, shelter in home behavior, but we'll address that at a different time.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, well, welcome to my new show.
Okay, thank you.
Called Disruption, the Alchemy to Purpose.
Wonderful.
Yes. So, and I've done a little prepping, and I've shared a slide of all your books and spoken very highly of you and how you are a speaker and a best-selling author and my dad.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. That's
so now, pardon?
That's intimidating.
Yeah, well, now we move on to your wisdom. So I hope you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready for you.
Well, I thought you would be the perfect person to be the first guest on the show because of all of your wisdom, and that's not a reflection on your age, but that is what comes with age is wisdom and experiences. So let me start by asking you, in this moment of crisis, and people are experiencing it at different levels, what do you feel is the most important? What do you feel is most important to successfully self-manage through crisis?
Well, there are 3 ways that people traditionally respond to a crisis, no matter what it is. And of course, there's many crises been over the years. So the first one is that some people ironically will deny it even exists. I don't want to even deal with this. So they'll bury their head in the sand, figuratively speaking, pop it up every now and then, only to realize that it's still there, unfortunately, right? But denial is one way to deal with a crisis. A second way is to resist it. And what I mean by resist it is have an attitude of, this is unfair. Why is this happening? It's not my fault. And so we get into a blaming, if you like, a point the finger at everybody else that's responsible for it, And that doesn't do anything for you either, because as the old saying is, what you resist persists. It's not going to go away because of your resistance. And then the third way, which is the most productive way, and it's not as if you like the crisis or you want to be in the middle of the crisis, but it's the most productive thing, and that is to accept the reality. This is the way it is. This is where I am positioned in this crisis, because once you accept, that frees up the mind and frees up the thoughts. But when you're denying and you're resisting, your mind is just jammed with all this other stuff. Acceptance frees up your thinking to be able to start looking at ways that you can deal with it and create, if you like, your way out of it, right? The other thing that I think is very important for it is to have perspective, to really have perspective about whether this is a crisis that is obviously in the world today. That's we can't deny that reality. Well, what am I experiencing in terms of the crisis? Am I going to lose my house? Am I going to, can I not feed my family? And of course, there are many people that will be faced with this. If you're living, month to month, paycheck to paycheck, that's a very real crisis for them. And I have the greatest empathy. But if I look at myself, and obviously that's a part of where I am in life, I'm not going to lose my home in the next few months. I've got plenty to eat and will have. And so what's happening for me in this situation where we're all being asked to stay at home and shelter in, if you like, is it's more an inconvenience. I'm being inconvenienced in a major way, but it's really an inconvenience. So having perspective of where we're at personally also is very important.
I think that's good. And, and I hear what you're saying, that you're not personally in a position where some of the real fear around how am I going to make it month to month. But I know that you have been in crisis in your life where you have wondered if you're going to make it, not in a from a living paycheck to paycheck, but actually from a living, will I live past this month? And when you apply what you just said to those moments, how did you keep staying in a place of acceptance?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways. I mean, I have been in as an entrepreneur all of my life. I have been broke twice. I've never been bankrupt, but I went broke twice where, yes, everything could have gone. The house, everything could have gone. No question about that. So there's that sort of a crisis that I've had to deal with. And then, of course, there's the crisis of my health, where 9 years ago at this particular moment that I was coming out of the final stages of 7 weeks of radiation and chemotherapy treatment for a head and neck cancer. So I was in a very difficult situation health-wise, gone from 195 pound to 145 pound, couldn't swallow, feeding tube in my stomach, couldn't walk 100 yards without being exhausted. Again, I could have come from a victim standpoint and said, why me? But having lost my wife, your mother, several years before the cancer, I realized that why not me?
Mm-hmm.
It's happening to people all over the world. So I chose to either be a victim, no, or should I be a victor, which means that I eventually hoped that I would get through this and come out of it. But again, acceptance of where I was allowed me to, quote, be in the experience of it. I call it a Buddhist approach. In my book, Mark of an Eagle, I talk about a Buddhist approach. And that Buddhist approach is really to be in every moment of every day observing, okay, what was going on? How was I feeling? And what was I experiencing? And then do whatever I could to transcend that. You're not in a positive, what I call a positive freak sort of way, because it was a very, very debilitating experience. But in the acceptance, I was able to sit in the moment every day, realizing what I could control and what I couldn't control. And there was no way I could control the effects and the consequences of my body being poisoned, because
Yeah.
that's what the doctors say. When you have radiation and chemotherapy, your body's poisoned. So it was a tsunami, if you like, of poison going through my body. And until that stopped, then my body couldn't go to work, and my immune system be able to build up once again. But it was extremely slow, and so I had to exercise a tremendous amount of patience. That's what I learned from that experience, to be patient. And if there's one thing that all of us at this moment need to do, is to say, look, we can't control this thing. We're endeavoring to do whatever we can to contain it. But patience is one of the greatest assets that we can have through these times.
Absolutely. I think one of the bright spots too is, unlike, what you just shared about your cancer experience 9 years ago, this moment, really, we are all in it together. There's not, I don't think, a human being, unless they live in the very remote areas of the world, are not impacted by this. So we are all impacted by this.
Yeah, we are all impacted, and what I find coming out of it is also how it can bring out, of course, in some people, the worst of humanity, right? But it also, I'm so inspired by what people are saying and how people are coming together in this, and what people are posting on things like Facebook and Instagram. It's an inspirational time. You see communities coming together, and what it also, the lesson in that is one of the greatest ways to deal with the crisis also is to get out of oneself, to get out of one's own issues and one's own problems, and reach out to others and spend some time comforting others or supporting others in whatever way one can. I think this is a moment where humanity really shows itself at its very best. And
Yeah.
I personally love that.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Um, so in your writings, in your many books, you write about the human spirit. What does that mean?
Well, the human spirit is that is invisible within us, but gives us the power to transcend these a crisis, if you like, right? Or it helps us, the ordinary, do something extraordinary, right? So a couple of examples of that is one of the first and most powerful things I ever did, and what something I'm extremely proud of, is when I produced the movie The Power of Purpose, about the young Canadian boy Terry Fox, who as an amputee ran the greatest marathon ever, 3,339 miles across Canada, to raise money for cancer research. Yet before he did that, he was described both as an average athlete, and even an average student. But there was something within him, and that, I say, is his spirit, that allowed him to go and accomplish this most remarkable thing. So the human spirit is about transcendence, and it exists in all of us. Now, for some, it's kind of like just a flickering flame inside that we have never really tried to access. But for others, you see it coming through in their magnificence and the way they respond to life and the challenges of life. So you can look at it in many different ways, but it's that which helps us transcend and go above and beyond whatever we thought we were capable of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. So do you think that, I mean, in ways you've already shared this, but that there is opportunity in crisis?
Well, yes, the opportunities in crisis, of course, is one is the personal opportunity to see what we are personally capable of, and the power that we have within us that we may never have been able to access. Uh, and that's how I'm able to deal with this crisis right now, because of having survived several other crises, right? So whilst the crisis might be very different, the tools for dealing with that crisis are remarkably similar. Right? So the opportunities are personal growth and showing what we're capable of. But on a very practical level, in business, for example, this is a wonderful time to build deeper relationships with your customers and your clients. And the reason I say that is right now, many of them have nothing to offer you. Their budgets have been cut, right? They can't do anything. So in any connection with you have with them, they have nothing to give back to you in a tangible way, right? But this is a time to show them that you see them as more than just a client, or you see them as a human being. You have great empathy and compassion that they too are going through this themselves. And you want them to know that you're there for them at this time. And so you make connections, you communicate with them, you let them know that you care. And out of that, that creates a tremendous loyalty within them. That matters to them. And yes, there may or may not be any rewards in the future, but I have discovered that it will come back to you. You can't sow seeds like that without those seeds taking root and then ending up flourishing.
Well, absolutely. And in our work at TransForm, when we talk about brands being not only strong, but authentic, it's at these moments where understanding what's relevant to your clients is never more important. And I am noticing a lot of organizations who have done their work in terms of having strong cultures, they are able to do some really interesting, innovative things for their clients that wasn't part of what they offered initially, but they're finding ways to be relevant.
It's a tremendous opportunity for creativity right now. There's no question about that. And the same applies, of course, to leaders within organizations. This is an extraordinary opportunity for them to let their people know that they're just not a human resource, right? That they are much more than that to the company. They are an invaluable part of the organization. This is a time to emphasize the contribution that they have made and how important they are. And so leaders can make extraordinary connections, and in the same way, develop the loyalty, again, of the individual to the leader and to the organization. And so any time and investment made in this, again, will bring back enormous reward. And this is also where what you learn is that the values of the organization that are stated in all of these beautiful value statements that organizations have, are they real? Are they the real values? Or are they just nice words? Or are they the lived values? Are the leaders living these values, and the employees understand, yes, that they are modeling the values that they suggest are what this company stands for?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so what do you think is our most powerful asset in creating a successful life?
There's no question is to recognize our ability to create, right? Now, I want to distinguish that from creativity, right? You know, I have a statement that I like to use, and that is, what is once wasn't. What is once wasn't. In other words, that everything we see around us in a physical manifestation at one time didn't exist, right? Now, you now separate that, of course, from nature and the magic of nature. But if you have a look at nature itself, it's consistently creating and recreating itself. Now, those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, of course, are entering into spring. And so we see that magic of creation that cannot help itself, you know, quote, springing forth into the buds on the trees and the beauty of all that surround us and the flowers emerging, whatever that may be. So nature is the model of the creative force. But we also are a part of nature, and we were born to create. And whether we are aware of it or not, we are creating every day. When we wake up in the morning and we connect with a loved one, whoever that may be, right, we are creating that relationship for that day. So if we affirm the positive, we are affirming and creating love and bond and caring. If we're doing the opposite, then the opposite is going to happen. So that's with our loved ones, with our children. It doesn't make any difference who it might be. When we connect to other people and the way we treat them and our attitude towards them, we are creating those relationships. If we get up in the morning and we look at our day and we endeavor to look at what we're going to eat that day or whether we're going to exercise that day, we are creating, as the best we can, our health. When we are looking at the goals that we want to achieve, the vision we have with our lives, if we are taking steps, the practical steps to make that happen, then we are creating the outcome that will happen, right? So, practical example, you know, the books that you mentioned that I've written, right? So the vision of having a book, right? Then how does that start? That starts very simply with every morning, because you want to write the book so badly, taking the time, an hour or whatever it is, to write another 300 words or 400 words. So it's that, and that's the process of creation, is that you start with where you are and you have the vision of where you want to go, and then you move forward on a daily basis until what you wanted to manifest is a reality. Yeah, so understanding that creative force within us, we have that. And if we are not creating, we are not experiencing the full joy and fulfillment that is possible in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is such an amazing moment within the uncertainty. There's a sort of liberation when you can't control what's happening and what's going to happen. And so when you can just sit back and be present, and then really and be in a reset moment and think of possibilities, that is very inspiring. And so thinking about, you know, what do I want to create? What if I'm not able to go back to the job I had, or, you know, things that can feel scary, but it's just part of the reality. And if you believe in yourself and possibility, then this can be a very exciting moment too, to just be in possibility and be envisioning and be in creating.
Well, and I think it's right. The moment can be both scary and exciting. So it's not an either or. You can have it, and then on a daily basis, you can go in and out of that.
Yes.
But what if we really realize, though, that human beings live life on a feeling level, right? We want to feel good, and when times are scary, of course, we don't feel good, but what we need to ask ourselves is, what does produce good feelings in me? and I'm not talking about the spontaneous things that happen, the laughter or the joy, which is wonderful when it happens, but those feelings that I'm might not be in control of what's outside of me, but I am in control of what I can do. And so when we understand that, then we ask ourselves, okay, what can I do that would produce good feelings in me today? That I know that I'm taking charge and I'm doing the very best I can. And if we do that, then the impact of that or the consequence of that are good feelings. And so by doing it in that fashion, taking control, we start to live a fulfilled life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you do to begin your day as a creator?
I've been in the human potential movement, but now for over 40 years. I've always loved human potential since the first time I was exposed to it in my 20s. And so I've read numerous books, been to numerous seminars, and have been immersed in it tremendously. I say that only because even that, though, doesn't take away the fact that you are still a human being. And so you still have your challenges, you still have your feelings. And so at night, for example, I can wake up and be absorbed in what I didn't describe it this way, and I wish I could remember who did, but it was I can get absorbed with bully thoughts, negative thoughts that want to bully you, that want to get you into worrying and being overly concerned about what might happen. So that being part of being human, in the morning I have a ritual and a practice that allows me to push those bully thoughts away, realize that there's really nothing valid in them at all. And that ritual is, there's some symbolic things I do. One of them is that I have a specific area. So in the winter, I'm always sitting by the fire, right? I light a candle, right? The candle is the symbol of the spirit, the transcendent human spirit. Then I have my journal, and I journal for a page, just a page, and it's not a diary. I'm not recording what happened. I'm journaling about where I am attitudinally, where my thoughts are, where my feelings are, and what I feel that I need to do today to be able to have the type of day that I want to have. And that's a day where I'm creative, I'm kind, I'm compassionate where I can be compassionate, where I'm not in myself, I'm out of myself thinking about others. That's where I am in my life. So I don't want to be holier than thou in this interview, but that's it. So, and then I read, and I read others' thoughts, other people who are inspiring, so that I can get my mind focused, and so I can then get into my day in quite frankly, a very positive way. So that's my morning ritual. I've done it now for at least 30 years, and it served me well. And when I can't do it, I really feel the absence of it. So I'm very, quote, religious about it, if I can use that word. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I distinctly remember growing up and watching you and Mom both wake up early and have that routine. I don't know if she had the same routine, because I know we woke up to a lot of food had been cooked by the time we had woken up, but you have instilled that in me. So I also have that morning routine. So it's very powerful and positive, and one of the things that we can control.
Well, also, I can guarantee anybody that's watching this, whether it's an hour, and if they can't make it an hour, if it's a half an hour, if you put this practice into your life every day, it will dramatically change your life for the better. There's no question about it. It will dramatically change your life for the better.
It will. I totally agree. So, Dad, as we wrap up, what's your final thought, your final inspiring message to anyone that will watch this interview?
I think it's what motivated my most recent book, Mark of an Eagle, right? And the subtitle, of course, being How Your Life Changes the World. What I come to realize through all of our work, the work I've done, the work you and I have done together at TransForm, is the unquestionable fact that every life matters. Every life has an impact. Now, some lives get a lot of publicity, right? These are people that are well known, but so many millions of people are making a difference every day and leaving a mark on the world that is often extraordinary. And even if it's not, they have left a mark. So what has come out of all of this to me, and this is my closing piece of advice to everybody, we are not on this planet to mark time. We are on this planet to leave our mark.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dad, thanks for being my first guest.
Yes, I hope I hope this is a good interview, because I don't want this aspiration of yours to be doomed because of anything I've said.
Me either. I'm going to share my screen again while you're on. So hang on a second, and I'm going to pull up this. So this is where people can find more information about your books on your website, www.davidmcnally.com. So I'm going to, all right. Thanks, Dad. I'll talk to you later.
I'm honored to be your first guest. I really mean that. Absolutely honored. Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully this worked and the recording worked. So we'll see.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.